So we will be discussing The Mandalorian. Obviously, the recent episode or plot spoilers, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, have you caught up? Have you watched the tragedy episode?
Yes, I watched it pretty much the day it came out. Um, never miss it, never wait around for YouTube to tell me what the the end of the episodes are. Yeah, always keeping up to date and looking forward to tomorrow's episode too.
Yeah. So you're giving it. You're a massive Star Wars fan. I'd like to think I know a bit about Star Wars. Obviously, I think you know the most.
Well,
So one of the biggest things is who do you think is coming for the child? So I will reel off some names and then you give it a likelihood score, whether you can give it like a percentage, and I'll say whether I agree or whatever. So
yeah, sure.
I'll blast off some Jedi, and we'll see what you think. Um, so we know that they are set after the Death Star gets blown up for the second time.
Yeah, so it's 5 years after Endor, isn't it? So you know, we're talking Luke's kind of the only known Jedi at that point to be knocking around. Obviously, no other than Ahsoka.
Yeah, so
Um,
So given that it's five, well, we believe it's 5 years after. It's not actually confirmed, is it? From what I'm aware.
Yeah, no, it's confirmed. It's set pretty much 4 or 5 years after Endor. Um, I know, obviously, you hear a lot of the directors speaking, and yeah, they've pretty much confirmed that's kind of the time frame for everything.
Oh, right, okay then. So we'll start then. Obviously, you already mentioned them. We'll start with Luke Skywalker. How
Uh,
how do you feel about it being Luke Skywalker to come meet him or take him?
would I be disappointed? No. The likelihood of it happening, I don't know if it's going to be a certainty. Just simply the fact that it's kind of too much of an easy out. Just to go, oh yeah, look, here's Luke Skywalker. Especially as I've had a lot of issues with the sequel trilogy. We won't go into that for this episode. um, but yeah, I think it's an easy out for them to go. Yeah, look, here's Luke Skywalker. I think the only probability, if you think of it practically, is Mark Hamill's a little bit too old to keep playing that role.
So do
Um,
you think Sebastian Stan will take the role?
I do quite like the idea of Sebastian Stan being, um, involved if he can do it to get it right, get him right as a character, portray Mark Hamill's Luke's version of Luke Skywalker right.
It is
Uh,
scary
you
how
know,
similar they are.
Featureless. Yeah, you can say that. You can almost say that with Ewan McGregor and Alec Guinness. Even Aldrin Ehrenreich, who played Han Solo, he wasn't a million miles away from Harrison Ford. So yeah, it's likely for me, not very likely. You're probably talking maybe a 15-20% chance of him turning up. Um,
But you feel it's just the easy out.
yeah, I think it's almost too much of an obvious answer, and knowing the likes of Dave Filoni and John Favreau, who are quite into the Legends material, they'll either dip into other characters, which obviously you might mention shortly, so I won't try and give that away yet. But no, 15-20%, I wouldn't say any more than that.
Well, I said I'm just going to ask you characters. I said I might not go into it as probably what you think. You can say you can put your own spin on it afterwards. So after Luke, a little bit of a curveball, which I don't really think a lot of people would think of. Again, probably because it's so, I don't know, it's like taboo for how far out it went. But Starkiller.
I would say that's like 2% chance.
Yeah,
As much as I'd like,
I'd agree. I'd put him in like a 1% category.
yeah.
But again, it's
So
one.
yeah, that's
I think that's the sort of character that potentially will like grab like loads of interest. Again, because a lot of people are screaming. I can't. What's the Sam Witwer? That's the character.
Sam Whip. Yeah, yeah. Talk
He's
about somebody who knows their Star Wars knowledge. It's him.
well he's
everyone
very
bows to his knowledge.
well he's very vocal about how much he wants to portray his real life character that character, because obviously he's just the voice of Sidious and Maul and stuff like that. But yeah, so again, 1% chance. How much would you like to see him over Luke Skywalker? Again, how do you think they would bring him back?
Well, I'd love to see that because obviously, you know, I've played the games growing up. You've played the games growing up. You know, we felt like it was, you know, quite an important role, especially when there wasn't any Star Wars to kind of talk about. There weren't very many games. It was kind of just a new take on, you know, the limit.
Like I said, when I was obviously describing it, how much you want to see Starkiller come in the come back in, and how, like, what would be probably the best way to bring him back? Is he still a clone? Is he, because it was always, was he a clone? Was he not? So yeah.
Yeah. So you know, as much as I'd like to see him in the episodes, I still think it's a slim chance. But again, it's one of those things where I think for what they're trying to portray on screen, it'll be he's almost too overpowered. Again, he's got unlimited power pretty much, and I think the way that they've tried to discuss it in the past is it's a like a they're like tall stories pretty much like of feats of the Jedi. Where I think when they did it and when they originally shot it, so it fits into the narrative a bit better. But no, I do like the idea of a Star Killer, how they would portray him compared to other characters. Obviously, you know, it'd pretty much be on the same level as Luke, even though obviously you know George Lucas has come out and said yeah, Luke's at the top of the chain. Whether Disney still recognise that or not is something completely different. But yeah, I still think it's a slim chance we'll see him. I'd really like to see him. Obviously, you've got a you know affinity to playing games with him in, but and obviously Sam Witwer again is portrayed actors like Emperor Palpatine, or as you said previously. So yeah, I'd like to see it, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. So next on the flip side will be Leia. Again, it's a lot more difficult now the Carrie Fisher's passed away. So it'd be a lot of CGI, whether she's recorded anything beforehand. But obviously, I imagine her parameters now have dropped considerably, or her chances. I would probably have put her same like Luke, like 20%. But I'd probably put her more like probably sort of like a 2-3% chance maybe. But
do you know what? I don't think that'll happen. Full stop. Even when they did, like when they reacted Tarkin had passed away, you know, for Rogue One, and obviously they used scenes out of the Last Jedi to do in the Rise of Skywalker. I still just don't. I see that as a literally
mean A New Hope?
0% chance happening.
or Return
No,
of
no,
the-
no, no. But literally, they used scenes out the Last Jedi for Leia.
Oh
To
right, I thought you meant for
carry
Tarkin.
her over. No, 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 no. But Tarkin, obviously, they've been able to reanimate his face. Obviously, they got the family's permission and what have you. But yeah, they that won't happen. I just don't think it goes down well. And obviously, when somebody's passed away, there's normally toes that you step on a little bit. When obviously the actor's still alive, okay, yes, you've got to be a bit like de-aging, like they did with Michael Douglas in like Ant-Man and stuff like that. But there's always that uncanny factor when you're looking at characters, and I just don't think it's something that they'll want to have a look at either.
So another one, again a little bit like Starkiller-esque sort of thing, and there's also a potential chance that he saved him from Order 66, is Mace Windu.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things online about that. I just don't know. I just don't think. Okay, yes, you've had Maul come back from the dead. I don't know whether they'd be able to give him much more of a life past where he dies in the Revenge of the Sith. Again, it's one of those things. Would it be cool to see him on screen? Yes. You know, will he still be rocking a purple lightsaber and no hand? Possibly yes. But again, it's one of those things. Would like to see. Don't really think will happen. That's probably like a 5% chance of happening. Again, it obviously depends whether Samuel L. Jackson wants to portray the role.
Oh well, I think then sorry to interrupt. The beauty of it being Samuel L. Jackson is because he's aged along with probably what the storyline would have the gap, so it actually will look a considerable lot older, and obviously makeup etc. They can do whatever.
Yeah.
With how he died, again, there's that ambiguity of you didn't actually see him die. You know, could he come back with one blind in one eye, all that sort of stuff? Could he have done like a sort of Luke Skywalker and cut himself off from the Force. I mean, I suppose if he did cut himself off from the Force, then Grogu wouldn't have been able to reach out to him.
Yeah.
Um,
It almost feels.
I don't think you're going to see him with any lightsaber. If it is him, which obviously would be awesome, I do not think you'll see him any capacity with a lightsaber. You know, again, because how did Grogu escape the temple? I always thought Grogu was going to be Yoda re-embodied. Like that's how, like the Force's way of light side, but passing itself on. But
I'm gonna say with Mace Windu, I think the kind of context that you've got to have a look into that is you know, there's too much of him surviving on what happened to him. So yeah. With Mace Windu, I think there's too much to have gone on and to explain to why he's been missing for this whole time. You know, with him being force lightning shocks from Palpatine, to him falling off, then surviving the purge pretty much after that period. And obviously, if you've noticed any of the comics or you know kind of that whole the Fallen Order issue, where you know if you were force sensitive, pretty much Vader and the Palpatine knew you were around and they were going to wipe you out. You know, and
we are talking about Jedi
for 20 years.
We are talking Jedi Masters here.
Oh yeah, at the same time as you know, okay, there's one lingering here, one lingering there. You know, the whole point of them, the Jedi coming to an end, was to kind of, you know, bring balance to the Force as it would have been on the way that they've tried to explain it, and it just kind of gives it's a bit of a cheap cop out when you go, you know, when Yoda goes, "You last of the Jedi, will you be?" In Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, but again,
Ahsoka. That a little bit.
Well, it's already cheapened it, isn't it? Because Ahsoka's around, so.
Yeah, well,
and
I think
for everyone's belief, Mace again. So why would Vader and that hunt down Mace Windu or same as Palpatine when they believe he's dead? You wouldn't hunt someone that you believe is dead.
Well, they thought Obi-Wan was dead.
Well, they definitely knew. They definitely knew that Kenobi weren't dead, didn't they?
Well, yeah. Obviously, after Mustafar and stuff, obviously he's still hunting for him, but doesn't find him. And then you know, even on the episode 4, A New Hope, you know, Tarkin says, "Yeah, you should be the last of your religion." You know, doesn't believe that Obi-Wan Kenobi's alive. Obviously.
Yeah, but that's because how they've portrayed it, haven't they? So again, like you said, from Revenge of the Sith, they believed they killed Obi-Wan Kenobi. They believed he was dead, but then obviously he wasn't dead, and he ended up fighting Anakin on Mustafar. Yeah. So again, they didn't hunt him because they thought he was dead, and he's that obviously again in terms of which it is tangent in it a little bit, but that's obviously the naivety of the Sith. They obviously are they're their own undoing, but.
You look at it in the same way with the Clone Wars with Maul as well. Obviously, you had Inquisitors hunting him down. Obviously, still, you know, he wasn't a Jedi, but any threat to their power, they were looking just to try and wipe them out, wipe them off the map. But yeah, so obviously going back to the point in hand, yeah, I think it'd be nice to see it. Be interesting to see Samuel L. Jackson do the role again. But I think the whole point of getting rid of Mace Windu is he kind of personified everything that was wrong with the Jedi Order at the time. You know, where he wiped them all out. He was kind of, you know, arrogant, didn't really listen to, you know, other people. Was very rigid. Obviously, they had a dogma set in place. You know, you can't have you know, you can't take on any sort of relationship. You can't have compassion. You must do this. You must do that. That's kind of what is undone with Luke later on in the rest of the films. But again, that might be another discussion for another time. That would probably go off on a tangent if that was the case.
Yeah, but just to finish that off, you can't. I mean, Darth Maul, Mace Windu was known as the one. His lightsaber was purple, was because he was balanced between. He tapped into the dark side as well. That's why he was so powerful. So
yeah,
to say he's a perfect balance between everything that, you know, he honed in, he was attuned to his senses, compassion, blah 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 blah, etc. Is it very, I don't know, probably left field or again stupid to overlook the fact that maybe he wasn't the perfect Jedi? That's probably what was his undoing.
I don't know. It's what it just. I don't think Mace Windu, was made out to be, the best of the Order. Obviously, Yoda's meant to be the best of the Order. That's obviously why he's the Grand Master, and I just don't think with Mace Windu, obviously they had Samuel L. Jackson is going to do a role, and obviously he's been given more fame. Obviously, the more material that's been given out, but I just don't see him as being that integral to carrying the story forward. Yeah, he was cool. Yeah, he had obviously purple lightsaber because that's what Samuel L. Jackson wanted when he spoke to George Lucas, and the whole thing of his form. I think it's Form 7 of Lightstate's Saber Combat or what have you when he fights Palpatine is to channel the dark side energy against the opponent he's facing, and Form would suit Grogu in terms of, whether Form 7, where using the dark side as a power alongside with the light is something that they'll want to have a look at. I know a lot of the time they don't, a lot of the directors don't want to carry on this whole idea of a grey Jedi, even though, Ahsoka for a long time was kind of classed as that because she wasn't light or dark. But again, it just depends on where they're looking to go. But yeah, I still think Mace is a bit too far fetched. Again, cool to see. Realistically, no. I just don't see it. That's why I'd only put it at like about a 5% chance. And then you've got to kind of build a whole backstory to where he's been for the last 20-25 years.
Well, is he in hiding? Same as the other two. You could again, but isn't that a great cliffhanger to go for season 3, and you can then mix in where he's been?
This is again, like I said, because obviously, we grew up with a prequel, so we like the idea of bringing these characters back because they're interesting. It's the Jedi at the height of the power. They add a little bit more depth to the universe, but against that, then obviously the other side of the fence is that where they're just narrowing the narrative again, when everything seems to be a little bit too connected, which has been complaints of other people in the past. But
yeah. We'll go on to the next one. So. The next person, again, would be, a popular, quite relatively new character in CALKESTIS from the Fallen Order. And how likely is it for us to see him after, in the game, he destroys the holocron? Could he have been the one? And it's very easy to cast him, given he was based off of Cameron Monaghan or whatever his name is, Monaghan.
Yeah.
So again, how much would you like to see it be him? Again, what plans could you use to bring him in? How old is he? All that sort of stuff.
Just trying to think off the top of where Fallen Order kind of sits within the time frame, and it's around the same time as the Purge, isn't it? It's
Order 66 happened, so he'd be a good 20 years older, wouldn't
he? Yeah. So obviously, if you're starting to put him, let's say he was a Padawan when it all happened, he spent it's towards the end of the Empire's reign. It spans 20 years before the Battle of Yavin. So even then, if that was just set a couple of years beforehand, you're probably talking his in his early 20s at that point, probably 25. So
you could argue he's even younger. You could argue he's about 16, 17 in the game.
Yeah. Well, by all means, you could probably say that, and it puts him in the right age gap, around about the same age as Ahsoka then. Again, which is feasible. But as we know, with the ages of Jedi, it doesn't really seem to matter. The older they get, the more powerful they get. Alec Guinness portraying Obi-Wan, and you've got Dooku. Obviously, I know he was a Sith, but relatively powerful for what is classed as a fallen Jedi more than a Sith. But yeah, I still like the idea of him coming into it. Again, it brings a bit more ties to other narratives, especially tying in some of the games. It gives them a bit more weight as well. Obviously, you've got actors there ready and willing to take on those roles. So hopefully, that's again something I like to see. I like them to tie all the material together. Be interesting to see them do it. And again, it's one of those things where if you've played the game, and obviously spoilers, it does destroy the holocron, which is all the children on it, and takes it away from Vader. That Grogu using the Seeing Stone on Tython, he's able to reach out to somebody like that.
Well,
again,
it'd be one of the only ones that we know of that is connected to the Force.
yeah, it also depends on what Lucasfilm have got planned, and LucasArts have got planned to do with that. If there's going to be a Fallen Order too. We've seen them kill off main characters before in video games, and they kind of maybe regretted it, like they did with Starkiller. Obviously, I know they've not done it with this one.
Is that not no? Again, so where you were saying before about explaining backstories and stuff, they can introduce him and the backstory we explained by the game.
Yeah, it's you've also kind of respected a lot of the people that aren't hardcore Star Wars fans. I know, yes, okay, they're probably tuning into the Mandalorian and know what they expect beforehand. But yeah, I do like the idea that you can drop games in here to kind of pick up the narrative and at least fill in some of the backstory and give it a bit more depth and a bit more weight. One thing I actually took going back to the episode is quite like the fact that they dropped the Dark Troopers in, and for somebody like my age who has played Dark Forces in the past, started that straight away and was like, I like that idea because they are adding more context to things that were in Legends, that have been in games, and bringing it to the forefront. But again, you just got to look at the creators of who they're bringing in. Again, Favreau and Filoni, who know the material quite well and like to drive it forward. Which again, CALKESTIS is something that I think they could push forward with and have a good run with. You don't know too much about him. You know a bit about his past. They could build on him, and again, it'd be something interesting narratively wise just to see him take on a new learner if he hasn't done that already.
All right. So and then percentage chance of how likely you think it'll be him.
Again, I think that it's probably like a 20% chance.
So you put him sort of like Luke Skywalker level.
Yeah, again, just because it's tying in a game rather than a preset of media that we actually already know. Let's say for argument's sake, Ahsoka hadn't turned up, I'd probably be like, yeah, like 60-70% chance it's going to be Ahsoka, just because it's, Dave Filoni in the background. He's obviously done Rebels and the Clone Wars and what have you, but because it is a game, and whether they're looking to build on the narrative or not in a certain direction, I'd still go 20% with that one.
All right. Next, EZRABRIDGER.
No, this is the one.
This is a Dave Filoni character, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's completely correct. So, as soon as the last episode with Ahsoka was in, as soon as she mentioned Grand Admiral Thrawn, my mind didn't go, "Oh, cool, Thrawn." My mind went, "Oh, Ezra." That literally is kind of, obviously, if you've not seen the end of Rebels, and you won't know what happens to either of them. Obviously, I know you've seen it.
Yeah, like I said, you can say what's at the end of the day. It's, people need to know, so you can say what you've seen. So
without spoiling, if you haven't
no, you can't. So you're an idiot. Go and watch it because you need to understand. But basically, yeah, Ezra holds Thrawn into a ship that's had its glass smashed while beasts wrap around it that can pretty much travel by light speed, and then they travel into light speed. Ahsoka's job is to go find Ezra. Well, that's what she tasks herself with.
Yeah.
And now we've seen Ahsoka, and it doesn't seem that she's still looking for him, or unless she's looking for Thrawn to find him.
So again, depending on where you see the end of Rebels, you see Ahsoka and Sabine obviously set off in a ship after visiting the memorial to Ezra and Kanan and everybody at the end of Rebels. So you don't know whether that's quite set just after the events of what the Mandalorian's picking up, because obviously Ahsoka's currently off dealing with things that we saw in the last episode and trying to help villages and helping the little people, because that's what she believes that she should be doing. But in terms of kind of dragging that narrative across, I think that's quite obviously again another Dave Filoni character, something he knows really well. It would explain the time difference to where he's disappeared to, reintroducing two characters that we know. We don't have to fill in too much in the narratives. The only thing that we'll have to kind of explain at some point is what happened, where they've been, and whether it's how one survived or how one got away or how they're going to bring themselves back into the whole galactic stage. But I do like the idea. Again, we've got a lot of context with them with Rebels, and obviously it could tie into Ahsoka, and obviously they've already got the preset history. Um, I like the idea. I actually think it's quite a higher probability than most of the other ones. I actually think this is going to be like a 30, 35. Even if sticking my neck out of 40% chance of them actually showing up on screen. But obviously,
Who plays him?
Rumours. Say that again.
Who plays him?
Well, that's what I literally was just coming on to. I don't know which actor they've got in mind to play him. But then again, you've only seen him in animated form. You don't know obviously what he looks like as an adult. So I think he's still quite considered pretty young while he's in Rebels. So I think he's only 15, 16 at the time. So 20. Well, no, it'd probably be what 8 years on or something like 6 years on. So he'd probably just be coming into his 20s, so he'd be a fairly young-ish person. But be interesting to see what they do.
Okay. And then the Stark nobility or morality of it being no one.
That's crossed my mind as well.
I do have a final option for you.
Yeah,
After this,
I thought you had. I did have. I've got a mention of my own, so we'll see if we're thinking of the same thing. So I'll know what we're thinking afterward.
So my point of it being no one is he's left for, I don't know, maybe the Mandalorian to find that he's force sensitive. If you bring the dark saber in.
I've thought of. Yeah, this is something I've thought of. Again,
because we've got the dark saber about it and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, will they do that? I don't know, because I think a lot of the content is there just seem to be Jedi all over the place, and whether they want him to be able to kind of develop as just as a man in a suit, and I think they're probably looking at the Mandalorians, how he's changing over time and becoming more of a more rounded person, not a rigid dogma like he is with the Children of the Watch. And so I think that might be not something they'll look at doing, but. Really cool idea. I like the idea that there might be some sort of trigger, and again, with it being no one, I think that might be the only thing. It's obviously just to keep Grogu and him together.
Testament to the fact that the Jedi are all gone.
Yeah, and like I said, it keeps playing into the narrative. So, like at this time of the period in time, the only thing you know about is Luke. That's he's the last Jedi, pretty much. That's what Yoda tells him. Even though obviously that's slightly retconned with Rise of Skywalker, where just slightly afterwards he trains Leia. So technically, there's two of them. Even she doesn't go on to become a knight, because obviously what she sees with a vision with her son.
See, my whole thing is when franchises or universes come about or start, they never. A lot of people say, "Oh yeah, this is the idea they always had. This is the plans." I don't believe anyone ever starts something like those 3 films to begin with, and would have gone, because he was just telling a story, effectively, movies for sale. And I don't think at any point he would have gone, oh, in 40 years' time, I plan to have this massive open universe of movies, similar to the Avengers. So where in those sort of films, Yoda's saying, oh, you'll be the last Jedi, that's for that story. Whereas now, again, because they need to make money off it, so to speak, obviously it's the truth, and to expand the universe, they need to show that was all that Yoda knew.
If for argument's sake that we hadn't had the sequel trilogy after this, and it was completely open, then I could probably say, the chances of it actually happening would be quite high, just because obviously mixing a Mandalorian and a Jedi at the same time. Obviously, again, going back to Rebels, that's only ever happened once in its in the history. That was it, Tar Isla, I think it is. But in terms of kind of if the sequels trilogy hadn't happened, I would have gone, probably a higher chance that they're going to do this. It's something more interesting to do, and obviously you can go through kind of like the discovery of him figuring out his force powers, and obviously we've seen in other episodes that he's not fallible. He can be stopped, he can be hurt. So it would have been interesting. Again, I just don't think with the sequel trilogy being out they would have done anything, because I think it just doesn't tie in very well to what they're looking at. I know there's a bigger gap. There's probably another 15 years to kind of get out of the way. Um, you know, would I like to see it happen? Yeah, I'm always open-minded and stuff like this, but I just can't see it going the way that you think it would, if that makes any sense.
Okay. And my last thought, or who I thought it could be, because I think Ahsoka hints to it quite heavily, where she says he has to choose his own path because he's got a lot of fear inside him. So could this be sort of a dark Yoda? So we will see potentially a Sith coming, or someone who's on that dark, the dark side of the Force, come and try and take Grogu. Because the Mandalorian wouldn't know any better, because he would just believe this person's a Jedi. So will we see? Will we see? Oh god, I can't remember if Ventress survives, but sort of like a Ventress, or you won't see Darth Maul because we know Darth Maul's been killed off. So
yeah.
So
well, I think we've all the novels with Ventress. If you go back to that, I think it's the one with
just as a name. Again, it's not. Yeah. It's not like I said. You don't have to go into it, but
like a Sith idea who's knocking around still that might be able to get them away. The good thing is, and I think this is something that even the sequel trilogy films are trying to point out. Obviously, you have two sects of religion, which is the Sith and the Jedi, which are Force wielders. But the Force isn't exclusive to just its people. It might not be a Sith or a Jedi that finds them. I think Maz, out of the Force Awakens, she is at some level Force sensitive and can kind of read people, if that makes sense. So it might not be anyone to do with the religions, or those two set precedents where it's either a Sith or a Jedi. But again, it could be a Sith. It doesn't specifically say when he's on the stone that it's going to reach out to a Jedi specifically. It just says it's somebody might come looking for him.
Yeah, there's not to say that it'll be this season or anything, but I would imagine your cliffhanger for this season could potentially be this. So you think so again, you're giving options and avenues to sort of like the Bendu, sort of anything that's Force sensitive.
Yeah, and again, it gives them a bit more option going forward about what they can do. It gives them the flexibility without having to keep relying on the main Skywalker anthology. Where this is going to happen. We must make sure the story fits within this narrative. Obviously, the more they stay away from that, the bit more room they've got to grow. But I like the idea. It'd be very interesting. Obviously the Sith are quite devious. If the Mandalorian would fall for somebody like just coming along and taking him, and then being reintroduced to Grogu in a couple of seasons later, and he's started down a dark side path where the Mandalorian then potentially has to try and recover him or bring him back or try and rescue him or something like that. But again, yeah, cool concept. But whether it'll happen, it just doesn't feel maybe the route that they'll go down.
Okay.